So, folks, cultural appropriation is a term we're hearing now more than ever. And the most recent story being directed at Gwen Stefani after she sported fall dreadlocks in a music video featuring Sean Paul and Shenseea. But do we sometimes use the term out of context? Well, senior lecturer in cultural studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Dr. Sonjah Stanley Niaah, is online to help us, differentiate cultural appropriation from appreciation. Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Good morning. Always good to be here. I'm very good.
Fantastic. I'm happy that you're not hiking at this moment.
Well, she's always hiking. The air up there means she's always hiking. You look good, Doc. It's good to see you this morning.
What do we mean by cultural appropriation? What does that phrase mean?
So it's a really kind of complex term. Cultural appreciation ranges from the understanding of somebody taking intellectual property or, using in an unauthorized way without permission another culture's assets, such as dance, dress, music, language, cuisine, traditional medicine, religious symbols. And then there's the other side of the thing, which is the political understanding, where you can be using another's cultural assets, but using it in a way where the power relationships are completely skewed. So, for example, dominant cultures, dominant hegemonic forces using the culture and assets of cultures that are from subordinate groups. Mm-hmm. So the power differentiation there is where it really begins to get the ire of people.
And somewhere
so not just done like theft, but where the theft is within an unbalanced situation.
So if we insert attribution, would that right size the equation?
Yes, to some extent, but not in total, because there are some people who, regardless of attribution, they're going to gain more from using your cultural assets. In fact, they have more visibility, they have more power to distribute, power to be seen.
Can it be a
power to gain capital, gain out of it. Yeah. So that one of the things is always to pay attention to that power differentiation.
Yep, and I accept that. Can it be a compliment?
Oh, absolutely. Words like appreciation, compliment, are on one side of the spectrum, and then on the other side, it's thief and cannibalism.
Not gonna tell it like, oh, it is culture Doc in the bit. So let me ask you, in this case of Gwen Stefani, or just musicians generally. I mean, Stefani has been
a good example.
Stefani has been singing reggae-laced music it's not the first time. And she is one of many. And then we see Jamaican artists standing alongside her. So that sparks another question in my mind. But how would that paradigm you mentioned before, so the asking of the permission and this, how would that work in a case like this? Because I can't imagine that Gwen, Adele here, same thing with this photograph was a picture, would want to appropriate our culture and skew and be a part of this hegemonic construct that you speak of. So how would, in a case like hers and others who do Jamaican music from around the world, right size and balance and make it okay to show their appreciation for our things without it being put under this banner?
So what is interesting, and I didn't do any research into this particular song now between Gwen Stefani, Shenseea, and Sean Paul. We know the examples of Drake and Popcorn. People have called Rihanna's name. There's Adele. What is interesting about this particular song is that it may have been initiated by Sean Paul. We know Sean Paul has had a number of collaborations, international collaborations that have been with big artists, whether it's Sia. We know that Sean Paul has a record of doing this. And that's what you want to see, though, where there's collaboration in a way that takes Jamaican music to a different kind of audience. And so we, in a cultural context, we can't get around the cross-fertilization. We can't get around the collaboration. In fact, the collaboration is necessary and strategic. So what you really want to make sure of is that the power relationships are acknowledged. There is permission. There is an understanding that use is going to be in a strategic way for distribution in different markets. And all of that doesn't even need to be said. What needs to happen is that Gwen Stefani, when she goes on stage to perform at, say, the Super Bowl halftime show, needs to have Sean Paul on stage with her.
Got it.
When that song is being performed.
Right.
And so we have seen Beyonce, for example, do quite the opposite. And it needs to be, balanced in a way that serves the parties involved. Oftentimes, it is absolutely being done in a way that parties from the subordinate, groups or where the distribution channels are not with access to major labels.
Yep.
We see disadvantage.
Having said all of that, did you just say that if Sean Paul or a local artist initiates something like this, it's okay?
Absolutely, for strategic reasons, it's okay. Because the music can't survive, Neville, without these kinds of collaborations.
Right.
I do not believe Sean Paul's popularity in the Latin American market would be what it is had he not been, really sort of strategically getting himself into these markets through shows, but also through collaborations.
Right. But what you're also saying, further to Neville's point, is that should there be new opportunities that come from this collaboration, then there ought to be a leveraging of that relationship so that it gives Sean his due process. So if Gwen is on a halftime show, she's not supposed to play Sean on the track. Sean should be on the stage with her.
Absolutely. And so those are the kind of things that people want to work out contractually before they even get into partnerships, though. And, thankfully, there is a critical mass of us now, particularly in the music industry, who understand where intellectual property is concerned, the kinds of, negotiations that are necessary. And so we don't step into collaborations anymore, being the party.
Right.
From Jamaica that nobody know about, can't find on the map, but they know of our cultural, value in such a way that they want our collaboration. Because, it's cultural appropriation is also understood to be where somebody is using your culture to style, to spice up.
So we could get into that then, Doc, because a part of the issue now is the dreadlocks and so and so and so. Now, when it comes to that, how do we deal with that aspect?
It is a really tricky issue, Simone, because clearly Gwen Stefani is going to be using that kind of fall locks with that, presentation only for the purpose of the song. I do not know. I have not done the research to know whether she has sported fall locks before. I suspect that Gwen Stefani, being the character she has presented to the world, would perhaps have had this kind of presentation of self. But where it is obvious that you're not, speaking Rasta language, you're not trying to represent yourself as an article Jamaican. Let's use Drake as an example, who grew up in a context where, surrounded by Jamaican people, very much almost speaking Jamaican in his informal context. Completely different scenario. Rihanna, a Caribbean person who has been catapulted into another kind of international spotlight beyond her, small hometown in Barbados. She's an honorary Jamaican by now. We're talking about a different kind of personality there. And I would suggest that people take very close note of those who do not come from the cultural context, who do not associate with people from the cultural context. So DJ Khaled, completely different scenario there again.
No, in Barnier.
Yes, exactly.
No, clearly, another one.
And claims his Jamaican citizenship, right? Yeah. Different scenario, but still the power relationships are not as balanced as we would like to see them. Yep. And they never will be. This is the nature of the world.
Correct.
Yep. We have to go, Dr. Stanley Niaah. Final question from me. Having said everything that you've said, is this particular instance much ado about nothing?
it's not much ado about nothing at all, because we need for more people to understand why there is concern. And the more we talk about it, is the more those who are disadvantaged will understand how to put themselves in a position to, one, gain knowledge and negotiate appropriately moving forward. So yeah, the cross-fertilization will happen, but we must understand that where cultural assets are concerned, and Jamaica has been the country to give the world 8 or 7, depending on who you're speaking to, distinct genres of music, that's an embarrassment of cultural riches. Right. We are that space, and we must recognize ourselves.
All right. Great to see you. You can go do your hiking now. All right. Sorry to stop you from your early morning hike.
Always good to be with you.
Good to see you. God bless you and the family. Stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Senior lecturer in cultural studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Dr. Sonjah Stanley Niaah.
Hiking Queen. We've got more on Smile after this break. Please stay with us.